Joining us now for more is the chair of the Senate Commerce Committee and member of the Senate Foreign Policy Committee, Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. We'll,
Good to be with you.
Have much more on immigration in a moment. But first, as we learn more about those bombshell revelations that reporter Jeffrey Goldberg was added to a classified signal chain, the White House has said it was reviewing how an inadvertent number was added. Your reaction to this?
Well, listen, this was obviously a mess to add a reporter to this signal chain, and I feel confident it's not something that will happen again. I will say the underlying back and forth, the substance of what is being discussed was President Trump's commitment to defending America, and in particular, if you look at over the last 4 years, the Houthis, funded by Iran, have engaged in a military campaign to try to shut down shipping lanes, to try to shut down American shipping through the Suez Canal. That was enormously damaging. And I'm grateful that the president, as a strong commander-in-chief, is acting decisively to stop the Houthis from being terrorists and from targeting American national security interests and American economic interests.
Minority Leader Schumer has called for an investigation into how this could have happened. Would you support one?
Well, listen, it doesn't surprise me that Chuck Schumer's immediate response is engage in political attacks. That's apparently all the Democrats are about today is political attacks. And Schumer has a real incentive to do that because his left flank, he's got AOC threatening to primary him right now, and he's worried about his left flank. I got to say, I'm curious why Schumer and the Democrats are not concerned about the fact that for the last 4 years, the Houthis have been allowed to engage in terrorism against America, against America's allies, to drive up costs for consumers. Look, that terrorism makes shipping through the Suez Canal much, much more expensive, which means Americans, when you go to the grocery store and department store, you're paying more money because Joe Biden and the Democrats were not willing to stand up and defend America. President Trump is being vigorous going after the Houthis in his direction. And actually, I read through that the whole Jeffrey Goldberg article. His direction, the president's direction, was open up these shipping lanes. That's good for America. And it raises a natural question, why didn't Joe Biden and the Democrats do that over the 4 years they were in office?
Just one more question about that Jeffrey Goldberg article, and we'll move on. You were obviously fiercely critical of Hillary Clinton and her handling of classified information on a private email server, calling it grossly negligent. If we were on your podcast, The Verdict with Ted Cruz, would you call this grossly negligent?
Well, listen, it was clearly a screw-up. It was obvious that including Jeffrey Goldberg was inadvertent, and that was a mess, and an embarrassing mess. But I will say there's a big difference in that immediately the Trump White House took responsibility. They said this was genuine, this was a real exchange, and it was a mistake. And that taking responsibility, that was the right thing to do. It's very different from how Hillary Clinton and the Democrats did, where they obfuscated, they denied, they tried to hide the thing for months upon months upon months. I'd say those are very different.
This morning, a federal judge told the Trump administration that those alleged Venezuelan gang members that were deported to El Salvador are entitled to due process. Would you agree?
Well, let's be clear. Due process does not protect foreign nationals. It does not protect foreign terrorists. The Due Process Clause of the Constitution, which is incredibly important in the Bill of Rights, protects Americans. It is a protection to America. The Supreme Court's been clear that foreign terrorists are not entitled to due process. And let me say more fundamentally, we are seeing a pattern of lawfare. We saw it during the last 4 years with Joe Biden and the Democrats indicting President Trump over and over and over again, trying to abuse the courts to attack their political rivals. And we're seeing it now every single day that Donald Trump has been in his second term. He gets sued. He gets sued by left-wing activist groups, and he gets sued by Democrat attorneys general. And we have seen in the first 2 months of the Trump administration more nationwide injunctions in 2 months than we saw throughout the entire Bush administration, the entire Obama administration, and the entire Biden administration. It is a dramatic escalation. And actually, Lindsey, my podcast, Verdict with Ted Cruz, today the entire podcast focuses on the abuse of nationwide injunctions as a tool of lawfare. And ultimately what's behind it is radicals who were put on the bench, many of them by Barack Obama and Joe Biden. They don't want President Trump to follow through on the promises he made to the American voters. They disagree with those promises, and they're abusing their power trying to stop them. I think Congress has a responsibility to rein in that judicial
and
abuse
Senator
of power.
Cruz, we just have 30 seconds left. Just asking you to keep on your constitutional scholar hat for a moment. The administration says that it has complied with the judge's orders. The judge doesn't seem as certain. Ultimately, would you say to the White House, you have to comply with the orders from the judicial branch, even if you don't agree necessarily with their rulings?
Well, I will say that's what Donald Trump has done 100% of the time. He has complied with judicial orders. The president who defied judicial orders was Joe Biden. And in fact, when the Supreme Court struck down Biden's illegal attempt to forgive student loans, Biden said he was going to defy the court and try to force through the policy anyway. And so Trump's consistent pattern has been complying with judicial orders, but he's also going to fight to defend the American people and to defend the Constitution, and I'm glad President Trump is fighting to do that.
Senator Ted Cruz, always appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Linsey.